Failure to launch? Will the real Bonnie Crombie please stand up? It's a bit of a question that we have out there about Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie, who is entertaining the idea of running to be the leader of the Liberal Party of Ontario. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Warren Kinsella and Brian Lilley. Warren, I want to sort of go back a few days when we were all in this, peeling back the curtain about the things that we do on the weekends, but we're all in a group chat and we found this website of Bonnie Crombie saying, this is why I want to run. Brian Lilley goes and asks some questions about that and then take down the website. And so I don't say the failure to launch sort of, tongue in cheek in a way, but what the hell happened here?
It was a total disaster. I mean, yeah, we were on a group chat, the three of us, with one of our other colleagues, and from a source, I think you got sent Bonnie Crombie's leadership website, and so this guy, phones her up and says, so you're running, and what did she say? I'm thinking about her. Lots of
so earlier in the day she had said lots of speculation. Have a great day, Brian. When I sent her the website, she said, I don't know who put this up. Let me get back to you.
And then it disappears, which was concrete confirmation that it was her website. And then it shows up later and she does her failure to launch. But that's not been her only problem. It's like, as the premier said, as Doug Ford, who's going to be her opponent if she wins the leadership, pick a lane, Bonnie. Like, are you either the mayor of Mississauga or are you running for the Ontario Liberal leadership? You can't do both at the same time. And we're seeing evidence as to why that's so.
I actually like the phrase that the premier used. He said, you can't have your butt on both sides of the fence. I mean, that's a pretty clear descriptive way of putting it, and what you would expect from Premier Ford, right?
Yeah, for sure. So let's just sort of go back to this announcement, non-announcement. I'm looking, I'm not looking, I'm doing it, I'm not doing it, sort of, two-step that she's trying to do, Brian. We know from hours after this that her plan was to launch with the Toronto Star, because they had lined up a big interview with her, which they ultimately probably had to get out the door because you had posted your story saying she's running and here's the website. And by the way, they took it down, put it back up. So it's kind of scuttled that whole rollout, as it were. But she still carries on and says, I'm still exploring. I'm not there yet. There is only one candidate that has formally announced for their intentions to run for a Liberal leader. There's two now. That's right.
Registered now.
Okay.
Nathan Smith and Ted Sue, they just put their paperwork in.
So for those leadership candidates, I mean, are they looking and saying, okay, Bonnie's formidable, to be sure, I think she is, or are they frustrated and saying, what are you doing here?
Well, so the reason that politicians do this, I'm exploring, I'm thinking about it, I've got a committee to advise me, is so that they don't have to follow fundraising and spending rules. Now, according to Elections Ontario, as soon as you start accepting donations, then you are a candidate. As soon as you start spending money on a campaign, you're a candidate. But, well, I'm not spending money on a campaign. I'm spending money on talking to people. I'm spending money on talking to people who will give me their email address and their phone number so I can contact them later to get their vote. So you're kind of in this gray zone. I think some of her opponents are feeling frustrated with that, but also Nathaniel Erskine Smith did a long Twitter thread about Crombie because she came out on the Tuesday. That was supposed to be her official launch date. And she started the morning with a series of radio interviews. And on several of them, including with News Talk 1010's John Moore, with Steve Paikin at TV Ontario, she said that she, if elected, would govern from the center right. Nathaniel Erskine Smith is on the left wing of the Liberal Party federally. He did this long Twitter thread. I'm not leaving a progressive federal party for unambitious status quo. We don't need a center right party. We have one. And now we're seeing in the Queen's Park Observer, people close to Crombie saying, she didn't mean that center right thing. She was tired when she said that. That was an exhausting day.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was exhausted from the time she got up until she finished later in the day? Because she said this multiple times. So she's walking back what was potentially one of her selling points, she won't be a
Yeah.
new Democrat in red like Kathleen Wynne was.
Well, and Warren, and that's why we say, will the real Bonnie Crombie please stand up? Because I don't think it really actually hurts her to say something like center right, because not only will that take away from the Ford PCs, to be sure, but it also does sort of take away the tarnish that the Ontario Liberal Party has, that they are more orange than red, shall we say, that they capitulated to former NDP leader Andrew Horwath far too many times, giving her what she wants. And really, the policies that Kathleen Wynne was even putting forward in her budgets were NDP budgets. And so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I know it's scary. Like, obviously Nate Erskine Smith is interested in sort of scaring people and saying, oh my God, center right, how dare we have another right wing or leaning party, or whatever the case may be. I don't know how effective it will be. But nonetheless, it's put Crombie on her back feet, because she's now again having to explain. And you and I know, when you're explaining, you're losing. And so where does she go from here?
Well, full disclosure, I ran Jean Chrétien's war rooms. I ran Dalton McGuinty's war rooms. I have known Bonnie Crombie for a long time. She is on the center right of the Liberal Party of Canada. And so were those guys, fiscally conservative, socially progressive. That has been a winning formula for Liberal parties federally and provincially. That was the lane she chose on day one. 24 hours later, she was trying to jump into a different lane. But that is the problem here that I think her candidacy is going to have, and the one that Ford identified. Like, she's in the middle of negotiating the separation of Mississauga from Peel Region, which is a multi-billion-dollar operation with a lot of moving parts. How the hell is she going to do that when she's running for the Ontario Liberal leadership? How the hell is she going to do that when she's taking shots at Doug Ford, the guy she needs to give her the best possible deal for Mississauga? Like, her timing and her approach is all wrong. And as you say, will the real Bonnie Crombie stand up?
Brian, last word to you. Look, collectively, the three of us have covered and been part of and seen many, many, many campaign launches. This one, to be charitable, was a hot mess.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that this is going to spell what a campaign could look like. Look, you get the bugs out, you work things out. I understand that. But this was supposed to be a big splash. She's a big name. She is certainly high profile. But this also comes on the heels of her being very much front and center of the city of Mississauga being the second spouse in the divorce in the Peel region. So how does that play into this? And do the residents of Mississauga look at her and say, well, you're abandoning us on this? Because we know she plans on running for leader of the party and still be mayor of Mississauga.
Yeah, she says that she won't resign as mayor of Mississauga until she wins the Ontario Liberal leadership. Look, that's an if she wins. It wasn't a great kickoff. It was supposed to be, a nice piece in the Toronto Star, followed up by a nice interview with CBC. And then, sorry, I showed up and I ruined everything. So you got that stumbling out of the gate. You've got the backtracking stumbling out of the gate. And as Warren said, a lot of people will have questions about Mississauga. But she's also going to be facing candidates like, we haven't mentioned him yet, Yasser Naqvi, former president of the Ontario Liberal Party, not the federal party. He's a federal MP now from Ottawa, but he's a former president of the provincial party. He's a former provincial cabinet minister. He's going to launch, I'm told, on June 3rd with two events, one in Mississauga, Bonnie's backyard, the other one in Ottawa. And he's going to launch with 70 on the ground field organizers. These aren't, names from the past of people who will say, yeah, you can put my name down and I'm not going to do anything. These are people who are going to be on the ground, selling memberships, organizing, and that's how these things are won. So Bonnie's going to be dealing with the mess that is Mississauga, annoying her residents, and having to deal with formidable campaigners in Yasser Naqvi, Nathaniel Erskine Smith, and I don't have a sense of Ted Hu's campaign yet, but you can't count him out either. So yeah, she's got star power. She's got a lot of buzz. But if that's all it took to win, we wouldn't have Premier Doug Ford right now. We'd have Premier Christine Elliott. That didn't happen.
Leadership races are a completely different beast. Well, does Bonnie Crombie get into the race, and does she pose a big threat to Doug Ford's PC government? Log on to Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think, and go to thetorontosun.com and hit that subscribe button. You're going to find coverage on stories like this and others you will not find anywhere else.